Ryan Garcia defeated Devin Haney after dropping him 3 times during their fight, and in this video we're going to take a closer look at the anatomy and science behind King Ryan's left hook, and plus we're also going to compare it to what we saw with UFC with Alex Pereira. Welcome back everybody, I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and my goal in this channel is to help teach you about the medical side of the sports world, and we've done a lot of UFC fight anatomy type of videos, and so in this one we're going to instead do some fight anatomy, some fight science with Ryan Garcia and this left hook. Of course, if you haven't seen yet, he defeated Devin Haney and dropped him 3 times during the fight, eventually going on to win by decision. We're going to look at the 3 times when Garcia dropped Haney with that left hook, because there's some variations in how he throws the punches that really play an important role in just how effective this punch is. So this was the first time that Garcia knocked down Haney, and this could have had the potential to completely knock him out and end the fight right then and there, but this is not as well delivered of a left hook as it could have been from Garcia. When we look back at Alex Pereira last week at UFC 300, when he throws his left hook, pay attention to the angle here of his elbow. So whenever you're delivering the hook, whenever you're delivering a punch, ideally you want to be able to maintain as much rigidity, a much stable position in that elbow as the punch comes through, because if your elbow tends to move, if your shoulder moves, if the arm moves a lot, you dissipate a lot of that energy through the movement of your limb as opposed to transferring it into the fighter. So here with Pereira, when he comes through, that arm stays very rigid, it's very solid and strong, delivering maximum power to the end of his fist. But this first time here with Garcia, what we see as his left hook comes through is he's not able to maintain that stable position in his elbow. So right here we have a little bit of an angle in that elbow. As the punch comes, you see how his elbow now suddenly gets knocked down and is more extended. So what that's going to do is it's going to cause some of that punch energy to be dissipated and not ultimately get transferred to Haney, because there's conservation of momentum here that's applied. And so in this case, a lot of that is lost by this loosening that you see in Garcia's left arm as that punch comes in. If he's able to make this more solid, if he's able to maintain the rigidity and keep it fixed and in a nice position, you deliver more of that blow into Haney, potentially causing more of a knockout punch. I think part of that is because of the position of Garcia's upper body here. So he's really opened up. His left arm is really far behind him, and in that position, your pec is going to be stretched and your muscles have an optimal range at which they have the most power when they contract. So for example, with your bicep, if you hold it about 90 degrees, you're going to be able to hold more power than if you try and hold it out all the way straight. So it's the same for your pec. If you're really far behind because of being rotated off to the side, you're going to have a much harder time maintaining that stability when the punch comes through and continuing to transfer that momentum across. And so because of how open Garcia is to throwing this left hook, he can't transfer as much power through. His pec can't fire to help continue to bring that arm across into some adduction. The bicep can't maintain the position of the elbow, and you lose some energy behind that hit. Next, we're going to take a look at the rest of Garcia's knockdown punches and compare and contrast them to this first one we saw. But first, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by AnCollar. AnCollar has been my go-to dress shirt for years, and in fact, it's pretty much all you'll see me wearing whenever I make these videos for you guys. AnCollar makes performance dress wear for men, and simply put, it's the most comfortable, best dress shirt that I have ever worn at an extremely affordable price as well. Their shirts are made with a proprietary blend of fabric that actually originates from recycled plastic bottles. They have a very lightweight, breathable, and nice feel to them that truly makes it feel like you're wearing an athletic shirt. They're stain repellent and wrinkle resistant, so all you have to do after you wash them is simply hang it up in the closet and no ironing involved. Right now, AnCollar is going to give you 20% off your order if you use code BRIAN20. That's 20% off, hands down, the best men's dress wear that I have ever worn. They've also got a lot of fantastic other products to round out your wardrobe, from shoes, ties, polo shirts, blazers. They also just introduced a couple of new products, their Tropic line, which is an even lighter, more breathable material, and their new Cloud line, which is their first ever cotton shirt. So even more great options to fit your own style. So take advantage of this great deal, code BRIAN20 for 20% off. Thank you again to AnCollar for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to our learning. Let's recap this one that we just watched here. We can see as that punch comes in, Garcia's left arm goes a little bit loose, losing some of that power to transfer into Haney. Now later on, we see the same sort of left hook come in here, but now watch how that elbow stays in a nice solid position. When the contact comes through into Haney, we see that elbow angle is maintained. We don't see any straightening of the arm. There's a little bit of that momentum continuing to come through the punch as opposed to falling off to the side. And this, again, is going to be a more effective left hook, even though it still didn't completely knock out Haney. That nice rigidity in his arm there helps to deliver more impact, helps to deliver more force coming through. The upper body still in that similar position, and so this is more a case of, I think, Garcia's bicep being able to fire better to maintain that elbow flexion position as he comes through with the punch, rather than trying to compensate for that trunk position with the pec. But he's still at a point of difficulty with his pec because of how that arm is rotated behind him. That humeral extension coming back behind him is going to, again, make it harder to bring it through. So better keeping the elbow in a rigid position there from the biceps firing, but still is going to be difficult to deliver even more power. So now we get to the final knockdown, and here we can see a much better position, number one, from Garcia's upper body. He's not rotating, he's not opened up as much, and so whenever he comes through with this punch, his pec is going to be in a more optimal position here. As he brings his arm across, it's going to be able to cause more humeral adduction coming inward because he's starting in a stronger position from the pec. He's not way open up out here. He's starting in a stronger position with his body more square up to Haney. Then we see that that elbow is in a little bit more of a flexed position. It's not quite as far out straight as we saw in those other big sweeping hooks. Again, that same concept of your bicep is going to be stronger if it's at a shorter flexion angle than if it's all the way out extended. And so here we see that extension is going to be less. And so as Garcia comes through, he has more punch. He's able to carry all the momentum through as opposed to his fist bouncing off like we saw on the others. He gets more rotational power through, great transfer of energy, ultimately, again, leading to Haney being knocked down for that third time. When we talk about just the general efficacy of a punch, it's equal parts the force produced, but then also just the speed. And so some boxers will be really good at having a lot of speed, but maybe not quite as much force, or they'll have a lot of force and strength, but not as much speed. Garcia, I think, is definitely one of these fighters who has much more speed than he does just pure brute strength. And there are some things with his biomechanics that could be maybe adjusted a little bit, could be optimized or worked on that would allow him to deliver more effective power when he throws that left. Again, you've got to be able to maintain that strong stability when you come through with that punch, because if you just are all loose and floppy like a noodle, you're not going to be able to transfer any of that energy. So you want to be really loose until you get to that point of impact, and then solid and firm when the impact comes through to not dissipate that energy. And again, if we go back and remind one more time what we saw with Pereira with how this was so effective, he maintains that nice strong rotation. The elbow doesn't move. It stays at that same constant position all the way through, delivering a much more powerful knockout blow type of punch. Credit to Haney here too for being able to just continue getting up and keep fighting. I think you never know what sort of impact and what blow is going to cause one fighter to be knocked out versus another. I think some component of it is toughness, just having that will to be able to get back up and continue fighting. But there's not really anything you can do to necessarily train to be able to withstand or have a tougher chin. You can potentially do some neck muscle exercise training to try and help protect and stabilize your head from those quick rotations. But a lot of this is, I think, just the sheer will of a fighter being able to come back up when they've been knocked down. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. So credit to Ryan for a great fight. Let me know, as always, any questions or comments down below. Thanks again to Collar for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to our learning.